to Sudan, where there are major movements taking place across the country. The security forces are aiming guns and tear gas on people, and the military is, in some cases, actually protecting people. Now, this movement started a couple of months ago as fundamentally an anti-austerity movement. As in some ways, you could look at actually the uprisings in Egypt and Tunisia that way as well. Alexandria, the second city in Egypt, is a very high concentration of labor power. And there was a huge impetus for that movement coming from labor. And I think one of the very interesting things about how Sudan has gotten so little press is that several years ago, when there's a huge amount of focus on the crimes that the Omar al-Bashir was committing in Darfur, as an example, Sudan was on a lot of the sort of top line media and liberal concern group focuses. In the last couple of years, not only has Sudan fallen out of focus, even as abuses and atrocities have continued, this austerity uprising has barely been noticed until really quite recently. And I think it should be noted that Omar al-Bashir has sort of in some ways worked his way back into global good standing by, of course, actually helping Eurozone nations with vicious anti-migrant policies. So this is empowered by students and it's empowered by labor unions. It doesn't rely on the traditional opposition parties as much. At the same time, I think anytime you sort of, practically they should be appealing to the military, but we also saw what happened in Egypt, and that was a tragedy. Essentially, it wasn't a revolution. It was essentially a military-enabled head of state change. But regardless of that sort of cautionary note, this is also just people with incredible courage risking their lives to fight a regime that's ran that. Omar al-Bashir, I think, has been in power since the late 80s, and this is just incredible courage and correct demands that we should be in solidarity with. So let's just play some of these clips. This one is iconic. This woman singing here. We could play this. They've been doing this for months. This is going on for several months now. And this is another the tweet from Nasreen Malik. This is a soldier calling on the rest of his rank to join the people, and he makes sure he's being recorded before he starts this clip. And absolutely, he and others could absolutely face execution for doing this. This is incredible courage here. Let's play some of that. Yeah. He's making sure that he's being recorded while he does this, and he's calling on his fellow soldiers to join in the army to basically protect the revolution. And in some cases, there have been barracks that have been opened for revolutionaries to protect themselves. And this is interesting, though. This is very different because, in Egypt, there was this sort of I wonder the extent to which the difference, because these guys are just, this is revolutionary bottom-up activity right here. These are ground level soldiers responding and wanting the change too. I don't know what the leadership of the military is in this position, but this is incredibly inspiring. And I think, very revealing that Sudan was at the top of the agenda when it was, absolutely a story of atrocities and abuse, but it's not at the top of the agenda when it's people with actually, I think, some similarities in terms of austerity and wealth concentration and authoritarian politics of the right-wing variety that you might find in many other parts of the world, including obviously the United States right now, or Brazil in some respects. This is also a cross-religious and cross-ethnic movement, which is really important. And Omar al-Bashir has been a master of using these types of things to divide his populace. And time might be running out for him, and we can only hope so.
It's amazing to watch this sort of scene, which has happened in so many different places across the globe and so many different types of revolutions, except this time it's covered with, he's got like the megaphone, and they got cell phones around him. It's like it's a different kind of world.
It's a very different world.
Also, like, people are displaying agency right now. I feel like the mainstream press is more interested in the Sudanese people or whoever when they're just these like suffering masses, and when they are joining together and taking action, they're like,
Well, it's much
they're
easier.
freaked out by it.
It's much easier for the media to take like sort of like a NGO report and make that into a news peg than like try to figure out what's actually happening independent of that. Those sorts of data gathering organizations.
Right.